Hello and welcome to Connecting Chats. Today, our guest is no one less than Alexander the Great, and he's going to be talking to us about his Calypso based songwriting workshops. I really hope you enjoy it, and please don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to Connecting Chats, Mr. Alexander the Great. I love that name, very imposing name, Alexander the Great.
Thank you, Fernando. Yeah. Well,
Is
the
that
D is for my
inspired?
middle name, David. The D is for David, so it works. Alexander the
Ah,
Great. That works like that. Yeah.
okay. It's also inspiration from history, right? Alexander the Great.
Right. The two things. No, the point is, I'm from Trinidad, and the D. If you said Alexander the Great in Trinidad, you would say Alexander the Great. You wouldn't say the. You'd say D. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
so there's the double take on the way I
Oh,
say
you were
things.
lucky with that
I
D.
was lucky. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
welcome very much. Thank you so much for coming today to Connecting Chats, and really looking forward to hearing more about your history. So let's start from the beginning. You just said you're from Trinidad.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into music and what kind of music you do more and what kind of instruments you play?
Fine. Well, first of all, I was born in Trinidad, but I left as a toddler before I was 3 years of age.
Oh, right. Okay.
My parents came here as part of the Windrush generation, if you like,
All right.
early 50s. And so I've been living in England ever since then, really, apart from a stint of about 18 months with my grandmother, who lived in Germany. When I was very small, this was under the age of 5. And but then I came back here, and I've got 2 brothers and 2 sisters. And in terms of music,
Yeah.
there was always a lot of music being played and sung in the family. My father liked to sing folk songs, played a bit of harmonica. My mother was an absolutely unbelievably fabulous opera singer, but could also sing jazz. She was like both ways. She had a great voice. Unfortunately, we've got no recordings because it was, way back.
Yeah.
People didn't have tape recorders in the 60s, not personal ones. Well,
I
some
know.
people
Only
did,
if you're Frank Sinatra or something,
That's
right?
right, exactly. And that, in fact, Sinatra was what we heard. We heard Ella Fitzgerald, but we also heard Calypso, because the interesting thing is those Caribbeans who came early on, once they had a place, they'd bought a place or found, their own place, then lots of relatives would come over to work. So I had 4 aunts and 3 female cousins who at various times came over to study nursing. They became part of the NHS in the early days. And then some of them went back home. Auntie Anne went to America. Auntie Meg stayed. She remained in England, and so it went like that. And my cousins, a couple of cousins stayed. The rest of them went back to Trinidad or to America and so on. So the point about this is they brought albums with them. So even in the early 50s, we heard Calypso and Steel Pan from albums that were brought by relatives. So one of my earliest memories is hearing people like the Mighty Sparrow mixed in with records of Sinatra and records of jazz and blues and things like that. It's all very eclectic, you see, and it all kind of sank in a bit. And then I suppose I had no intention of particularly being a musician, but one of my parents' friends was a wonderful Irish folk singer. He's still around. He lives down in Sussex, Terry Masterson, and he was Irish. And he used to sing this beautiful song called She Moved Through the Fair. And it only had 2 chords in it. And I loved this song so much. And I was very much in admiration of him because he used to come over and he would sing, songs. And he showed me these 2 chords, a chord of D and a chord of C on the guitar. Because I was never taught the guitar formally. I bought a guitar for £1.50 as equivalent from a jumble sale with no strings on it. And then this is when I was about 12. Then bought strings and fit all that kind of thing. So it all came bit by bit. But these 2 chords are fantastic. And my best friend at school knew 2 other chords.
All right.
Double. G and E minor. So when we got together, we had 4 chords between us. And we began to try and, copy songs, write songs, all the rest of it. The other big influence was the Beatles. When I was about 13 and a half, the Beatles hit. And it was like a sledgehammer.
I was going to say, actually, I think 4 chords is what John Lennon knew when he started as well, right?
That's right. All you need is 4 chords and you're away. People do. But the most important thing was that they sounded so different for everybody. For that, I don't think anybody's as old as I am in this group, and you have to imagine that late 50s music, English music. I mean, the most exciting person around was probably Cliff Richard, and he wasn't that exciting for me. I preferred the Shadows because it was electric guitars. So when the Beatles came, they just
Wow.
exploded because the singing was like nothing we'd heard before. What we didn't know at the time was they were just singing black music. We
Yeah.
didn't get it in London
Mm.
because Liverpool was a big port and many American sailors and servicemen came through
Oh,
Liverpool.
yeah.
And there were clubs that played what was then called race music. It was little labels in America that had black musicians on it. So they were more likely to hear Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry and stuff like that than we did down
Mhm.
below. And when they gave it, we thought that's what it sounded like. I didn't know that Twist and Shout had been recorded by the Isley Brothers. And even before the Isley Brothers did it, another black band did it. So it was a very well-established song. We only knew the Beatles version. We thought it was great.
Yeah.
And so that changed everything, because then I formed a band at school with my friend Chaz. We're both still musicians. We still keep in touch when we can.
Amazing.
He's a very good bass player and tours with different, he's been in a band called The Strawbs for 40 years now. But yeah, so I came into music that way. What I should also tell you, though, to backtrack, and this is quite similar to Steve's history too. My mother was a very good traditional Trinidadian mum, and 4 of the 5 kids had piano lessons. We had to go and have piano lessons, and I've got one of my brothers and one of my sisters are still musicians, and Sarah's a very good professional musician and does arranging and stuff like that. She's worked with quite a few, what you call famous people. But I had a piano teacher who shouted at me when I played F natural in the G major scale. She'd go, "No!" I can say that because she's passed on. Yeah, but unfortunately, it had a very bad effect on me. It made me scared of sight reading. I couldn't learn to sight read on the piano. Whereas my brother and sister can play quite well, can sight read. It didn't matter that much because I could use my ears, and most of the time we did, and we trained our ears to understand what was going on, experimented, tried things out. But it was a guitar band at school, and then Motown hit. Motown and Stax Records came with soul, and the band all said to me, "Oi, you used to play the piano. Time you got an electric organ." They switched me from guitar. We were 2 guitars, bass and drums. No, you're going to play organ. So I bought a Vox Continental. My parents are very supportive again, and advanced me a bit of money, and I paid them back. And so my keyboard playing days began. I would say I'm most proficient really on the keyboard.
All right. So
I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But keyboards has been where my professional career has taken me since leaving school, really, because by that time I was doing both. Yeah, I was doing keyboards and a bit of guitar. Yeah, through until maybe the very early 1990s. Because then what happened? I'd been in 3 or 4 original bands. I'd been a gigging musician. I toured, been abroad several times. I did a tour of Germany in 1969, I think it was, doing American basses, playing organ in a soul band and a reggae band. And I've done lots and lots of freelance work. But also it taught me, I played the sort of West End scene during the late 60s and early 70s, the nightclub scene, which was very hard drive. It was like 6 hours a night, 6.5 hours a night. You played from 9 till 3:30 in the morning with 4 15-minute breaks. But it taught you to learn a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You broadened it was at first you kind of think, oh, do I really want to play this stuff? Then you realize it's interesting. And actually, that guys who just stayed in one genre of music, like they've been a rock band, they made it and they stuck with that, actually, although they were successful, it wasn't so interesting as being able to play lots of things.
Yeah.
Being able to play lots of different styles and also enjoying doing that. And I became fascinated by so many kinds of music. I mean, everything under the sun.
That's amazing. Sorry.
But in 1990, I went back to my roots. I was going to say, in 1990, I decided I'm going to just do Calypso. And I just,
right.
You see, so what happened, I've done soul, I've done everything, I've written songs, all different styles. And I had a band, or I was in a band of 5 of us who were all professional gigging musicians. Now there's a problem there. Everyone was really good. The sax player, the guitar, they were fantastic musicians. I'll say so myself. Everybody was great. But we were always gigging, not together, just doing things, functions, traveling out to places, New Year's Eve in Bahrain. So I did that, things like that. So we could only do a few gigs together. And in the end, after a couple of years, it fell apart, but we were being managed. And I said to the manager, do you want to just manage me? It's not working, is it? No, it's not working. Manage me. I'm going to just do Calypso. He said, sure, what are you going to do? So I'm just going to do my stuff. I'm not singing anybody else's songs, period. I'm just writing and singing. It's going to be political. It's going to be hard hitting. Do you want to take it on? He said, sure, let's go for it. And so that's what happened. And it's the best thing I ever did, because Bob Dylan, I forgot, Dylan was a huge influence when I was a teenager as well. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he sang about injustice. There's a great song called The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, about a plantation slave, or not slave, I think she was still a slave at the time. And the owner of the plantation came in one day and he wanted to make him a drink or tea or something, and she was too slow. So he struck her with his silver-capped cane and he killed her. And he got 6 months in jail with all luxuries, because he was tried in a different state by an all-white jury and all that, and he came off free. And he wrote about this song, and it just hit me dead. That's it. And so it was from there but a step to become a community musician, because it's all about.
Oh, I was going to ask you the link. Yeah,
that was the link. And so that's what once I started to switch in the 90s, a lot of stuff came that was, in that way. I began to do festivals, nice festivals with hippies in them, because hippies listen to lyrics. I say hippies because I know it's sort of a term, but if you do a festival where there are people who come to stay in tents and you've got lyrics about politicians that are not savory, they'll listen.
I love that.
You see that? So it was the right move for me, because I don't mind playing other people's stuff, and now I will play a couple of other people's stuff now that I'm established. But at first, I did not want to put on a straw hat and a flowered shirt and stand in the lobby of the Hilton Hotel and sing Yellow Bird, even though Yellow Bird's a wonderful song. Once you do that, that's what you are. I remember, actually, I got contacted about 10 years ago by one of those big shipping companies, Nordic, I can't remember, they do, not shipping company, those holiday cruises.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we've looked at your profile. We think you'd be perfect on one of our boats. And I wrote back and said I wouldn't be. They said, why? I said, because I'm not going to sing nice songs by Harry Belafonte, which is what you want. I'm going to sing songs about politicians whom I don't like. And you or your audience will not love you for it. So I never took, I made that. They're great gigs if you want to do that. They're well paid.
Maybe they wouldn't listen to the words, the audience.
No, they would. They'd listen. I did one gig. I got a fantastic friend of mine whom I was at college with. We talk about that in a bit. He was an agent for world music. And he had I've known him for years. I've been to 2 colleges with him. And I said, Frank, he got me a gig somewhere in Bournemouth. And I said, what's it about? Oh, he said, it's a group of over 60s from a holiday thing. I said, Frank, you know what I do? I said, Frank, no. He said, well, just do, you'll be fine. I said, are you sure? You know what my lyrics are about? I got a song called They Came Upon the Windrush. It's a very hard-hitting song about the Windrush generation being mistreated by Britain after the event, you see. And to cut to the chase, it was at a hotel. I sang this song as an opening song, and they paid me off. They said, we don't want any more. Thank you very much indeed. One song. The first song I sang, and I'd warned Frank. I got back. I said, Frank, I told you, I'm not doing that easy stuff. I'm not doing Belafonte. I was the wrong person for the gig. We're great friends. I've done lots of stuff for him since then, but he learned the lesson. I said, no, I'm a particular style, and if it's the wrong gig, don't put me in it. It's no good for you. It's no good for me.
Okay, but I want to hear about the community music side of things.
Okay, in 1990,
how did you get involved in the first place, and what kind of things do you do?
Right. So what happened in 90? I was doing these gigs. Now I did some tours. Did 4 tours with a 10-piece band that I'd formed in 1995-6, and in 1990 I did a gig in Canterbury. And the guy running the place was a guy called Tom Andrews, a fantastically wonderful guy. And he called me up a few weeks after the gig and he said, I'm going to start an agency called Music for Change. And it's going to
All
be
right,
about
yeah.
people doing music, real proper people who know about their own music. And there's all these fantastic work. Well, there's a couple in our group. There's Lucky, there's H. All these guys started working for this same company. So we all did our own stuff. And he said, I can't pay you any money for the workshops. Can I just give you the petrol? And I said the important word. I said, yes, of course, Tom, let's go. And it became really successful. It's still going. And that's how I started to do community music gigs, first in schools. And that expanded. Once I was doing that, I found myself doing things in old people's homes where I would go in and do an hour of what you might call, and that's when I did do covers. Believe you, this is not.
But then you would do concert, like interactive concert. What kind of thing?
I would do songs that I went, and this is the great thing about my background, having done all the stuff I did in the 70s. I knew lots of standards, but standards that, well, I say standards. I could do stuff by the Kinks and they would recognize it because they'd been around that early. So I'm now going to an old people's home and spending an hour singing reminiscent songs, Moon River, but also All Shook Up, and also, Rolling Stone stuff, anything. And they would love it. And I did that for quite a time. And then I was asked to work with people with dementia. And that went, and from there to some centres which dealt with the Caribbean centres, one in Shepherd's Bush, one in Brent, I think, and one in Kensington, Chelsea, where I would go and do workshops with them and get them to write short poems or write a song together. My communal songwriting is my main thing. I get people in groups to compose, and it's very easy. Once I put them at their ease, I say, I'm your human computer. I won't tell you the answer to something, but I will tell you how to get there. And for instance, it might say, okay, we're going to go to the park today. And then someone says, how do I rhyme the word today? And instead of making a suggestion like away or hooray, I say to them, write down a number of words that rhyme with the word today, starting at the beginning of the alphabet. So they go A, okay, A, bay, cray or clay, day, and so you get the idea. And the reason I'm making go from the beginning is because if you don't, you jump around, you'll miss some. And I still use that technique. 50 years of writing songs, I will still run through, and I know words that don't work. Never put the word world at the end of a line, because the rhymes for world are very few. There is swirled and twirled and unfurled.
Let me write that down. Wait.
If you're going to use these words, I don't know what your song's about, but it doesn't work in normal songs. So if you're going to use the word world, use it in the middle of the sentence, not at the end. So these are things you learn over many years of doing it. Amazing. And I know what the rhymes are, and I just, but you get some great stuff. I did a fantastic, it was 2 years ago, 2019. I worked with Watford Palace Theatre with some elders. And I did a series of 2-hour workshops where they created a 15-minute short play, 3 poems that were community poems, and 2 songs, Calypso style songs, all their work, but with me facilitating and suggesting and all that kind of thing. And then we put it on at Watford Palace Theatre. We put a show on.
Amazing.
For the public,
cool,
and it's just but
did they sing as well?
They sing. It doesn't, and everybody can sing. There's no such thing as having a bad singer or a bad voice. Singing is singing. You just sing. And what was so amazing, their families came, but the biggest reward is how much they love doing it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for about 2 months, I think we had 5 meetings every 2 weeks, and then the final kind of we had 6 get-togethers. And I put the stuff to, and then we rehearsed it, and it was just great. And I've done that a couple of times with a couple of other people. So thank you, Tom Andrews, for asking me, do I want to do some workshops? Because that's how I fell into it. And that was 1998. So it's 23 years ago now.
Amazing. That's so cool. And then, like you just, you carried on basically doing this kind of work all the way from 98.
Yeah, and then about 2005, we were put in touch with Music in Detention.
Oh yeah,
and
that
he
tell
had
me
to
a little
work
bit
in
about
working at immigration removal centres. So
that.
another aspect, same thing. The thing is, there's no point reinventing the wheel. What I do is songwriting workshops in
Yeah.
which everybody contributes and everybody owns the song.
But do you
And there's
always
no,
use Calypso in as a starting point?
no, not necessarily. No,
Not
no.
necessarily.
It's Calypso because Calypso has such a breadth of topics. You will not write a heavy metal song about cricket, or
Yeah.
you might, but you probably won't. But you can write it in Calypso or reggae dead easy. There's
Uh,
over 200 cricket Calypsos. So the broadness of the topic means that when you go in somewhere and somebody, and they, often people want to write about their own experience,
yeah,
right? So you
yeah.
work with an elders group and they live in a village somewhere in Kent, and they want to talk about the village or whatever it is they're
Yeah.
doing there. And so it becomes personal to them. And for that, Calypso works very easily because they just want to beat really. And you know, if it's if they think of it as a pop song, it doesn't come as easily, I find, as if it just becomes a folky thing, because people tend to, I associate Calypso very much with politics because I've been there and I do it myself and I like some of the things I hear people doing, particularly colleagues and friends of mine. But it's thought of as a kind of folk music by a lot of
Yeah.
people. And folk music is for folk. It's for folk to sing. So once you're a member of the folk, you know, you're writing folk song, it's a great idea to just use that. Calypso is just a term, but it doesn't have to be in that style. It can take any
Yeah,
rhythm
yeah.
that they want,
Okay.
you know.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I wanted to ask you as well about your other relationships, and I wonder if it's more of your career as a performer or a community musician, or it's a bit of a blend in terms of Notting Hill Carnival. I know you have a big relationship with Notting Hill
Right.
Carnival.
Notting Hill.
Do you do
Notting Hill
workshops as
Carnival.
well, or how's that work?
Well, Notting Hill Carnival, Caribbean carnivals have three main aspects to them. There is masquerading, which is for everybody. Anybody can put on masquerade or put on a costume, you see. So
Yeah.
that's the most democratic because everybody can take part in that. Then there's music making, and it takes a couple of forms. One is the calypso or soca, which is just the soca is just the child of calypso. So it's still the same kind of music where you make statements in song, and then there's a steel pan. So there are those
Okay.
three main aspects. And the calypsonian's job is always to comment on topical stuff. You cannot sing a song. I mean, we had one this year, last year, 2020. Notting Hill Carnival was online. It went virtual. And there was a competition, which there's every year. We have about 15 to 20 people competing, which happens in all big carnivals, with songs that are topical and put to a band. We use an 8-piece band, 3 backup vocalists as well. And the first 4 songs, the winning song was about COVID. The second song was called 4 Times More Likely, which means Black people are 4 times more likely to be stopped by the police at the time. The third song was about something else. Black Lives Matter. And the fourth song was about COVID. Now this is funny about me, I'm always out of sync with what's going on. Not because I'm late, but because I'm early. I'm always early. In 2018, a good friend of mine who's a fellow Calypsonian in the Calypso tent won with a song about Windrush for the 70th anniversary. But I wrote the first Windrush song in 1998 for the 50th anniversary. I was 20 years too soon. It took the rest of the country 20 years to catch up to my message about the injustice. So we're now talking about injustice in 2018, but it was still injustice in 1998. I wrote a song about Monsanto in 1999. Now everyone's talking about Bayer Monsanto. So again, this last year, I wrote a song called Carnival's Going Green, because we are moving towards a more eco-friendly carnival. Instead of using diesel trucks, we should be using electric. So I wrote this song early on in 2020. I came last. The song's good. The song's good. It's a great recording. People love the song. It wasn't topical. It's too soon. You watch the next 5 years, they'll start writing
They'll start
songs
hard to, yeah,
about, yeah, they'll start going eco, like recycling their costumes and things, not throwing things
yeah.
away. But, you know, so I don't mind. I don't mind. It's
But
always nice to be out of sync if you're early. It just means, okay, well, you know, you thought of it first. But
Moving towards a greener carnival, we're heading towards a fairer festival. How can we refuse to reconstruct and reuse, when that is the path we must choose? If we want to be sure of our survival, we cannot simply become archival. So we're moving towards a greener carnival. Carnival's going green.
do you have a regular relationship with the carnival, or is it just as a
oh
component?
yes, no. Look, I mean, in fact, I have to say,
Just
I resigned last year.
okay.
Not for any bad reasons, but because I've been doing it too long. For 10 years, I've been on the board of the Association of Calypsonians and Soca Artists. Now that is we're all unpaid jobs, but there are about 20 something, I think 25 performers between them. All they need to do is write a song, they get it arranged for them by the band, and they perform on 5 nights usually, although it wasn't so last year. 5 nights, 5 Friday nights running up to the carnival. Traditionally in Trinidad and in the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean, you would have probably a couple of months of nights of Calypso tent. Calypso tent is really, it's not a tent as such, it's done in a building, but originally they would have been done in tents because these people were persona non grata. The authorities did not like Calypsonians because they wrote political songs about them, they wrote things. So they were always had to perform outside, and they would form a tent using banana leaves, hence the term of the tent. It's also, the tents were outdoor kind of gatherings where people did their arts and crafts and so on. So that was it. And it meant that you spent the whole year working on planning. You know, you'd send out reminders to people to get their songs ready for a certain time. Please sign up for the rehearsal schedule. You keep sending out reminders. You would go meetings every week to deal with the various logistics of what it's going to be like to put on the show. We also perform live at Notting Hill Carnival outside in Paris Square. That involves building a stage, 10,000 quid to find for a stage, all kinds of stuff like that. So very, very much involved in it. In 2017, we did our 25th anniversary celebration. We got some money from the Heritage Lottery Fund, and we did a commemorative book with everybody in it, photos and stuff. Man, was that a hard job. It was worth doing, but I must have put in a couple of thousand hours in that year just to get things running. And so it's like any organization,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure that all organizations do an awful lot of stuff at the beginning, and it has to keep going. And you can't get paid for it because you do it for love, because otherwise you wouldn't bother to do it.
Yeah. So you said that you had like between 23, 25 years of workshop leading in all this different kind of places and everything. Do you have any kind of a highlight of all this time in terms of your experiences? It doesn't have to be one project or one workshop, but kind of something that comes to you like as a highlight. It can be even a feeling or an insight you had.
There was one project I did for Music for Change a few years back, and it was about songwriting, but I remember going to 4 different parts of the country and working with students, and it was really satisfying because they came up with separate songs. You work with a small group of students, but you coach everybody in this, and then they put on a show at the end of it. And one other one that was really great was in 2003. I worked with a lecturer from Goldsmiths College.
All right.
And we did a song called Calypso for a Healthy School. And what it was about was we went into 3 schools in Southwark and 2 schools in Trinidad. And we worked with classes. Each class had, I think, 4 or 5 meetings with me. And so within the class, instead of the whole class writing the song together, the class would divide up into 3 or 4 groups, and each group would write a calypso. And then it was filmed, and we had a cameraman, there was some funding supplied for us to do that, and it was just, we came up with about 22 or 23 unbelievably good songs,
Wow.
all about drug and alcohol abuse. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
And the reason it was thought about, because the point at which children go from primary into secondary school is one of the most dangerous points. You know, it's when they're 11 years of age. All sorts of things may or may not happen, and they will be, well, now I suppose they're all exposed to various things, but at the time, the thinking of the authorities was that if they could write about something like that and research it, they might be almost forewarned about some of the things they might encounter when they move up. And so we did that. And some of the stuff, the songs, particularly the ones in Trinidad, one was an all girls school and one was a boys school, which tends to still be quite a lot the case. But all the schools in the English schools were mixed. But they were these groups of girls. There were 4 groups of girls in the girls' school. Yeah, 4 groups. And they came up with such amazingly good melodies. These are 10-year-old girls working together. I'm not doing any suggesting. I'm just the human computer. I say, sing that line. They sing a line. And then they discuss it. And one of the most magic, this is the most magic one I was going to tell you, was these 10-year-old girls. I was sitting there and I was being filmed, and they'd come up with some lines and so on. And I was moving between the groups. I come back to this group. I sat and listened for about a minute. And then I said, so tell me, and one of the girls went, and she was writing, she went, now, you have no idea, if you haven't been to Trinidad, how incredibly bold that is for a girl to put her hand up to an adult. This is an all-girls school, strong Catholic school. There's nuns in the school. There's also teachers. And I mean, you know, it's like, it's unimaginable how different it is from English schools in terms of the expectation of behavior. What it said to me was, I had become one of them. I had become a fellow participant, no longer a teacher.
This is beautiful, Alex.
And it was absolutely magic as I realized these girls have accepted me. Otherwise, they'd say, "Oh, sorry, sir, could you just wait while we finish?" No, she was scribbling. And I said, "Can you?" And she just carried on. Magic. In the whole 25 years, I think that moment just sticks with me. I get emotional thinking about it. It was so beautiful. I can't.
I love it.
Now, when I think of it, I can see her doing it. She's a woman of 25 now, probably.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know, but I've got her on film.
Oh, really? That's cool.
We've got that. I don't know if I've got that movement. I think I've got. Yeah, I have got that. I've got that moment.
That'd be nice to see it.
Because my friend she's now retired, but she was the lecturer at Goldsmiths. She ran a carnival week. What do you call a reading week? Because all the students there were either doing B.Eds, Bachelors of Education, or the other thing. Anyway, they were going to be teachers, and she thought that teachers should have a week of Caribbean studies because if they're going to work in London, they need to know about some other cultures.
Oh, I see.
It's a very good idea because, you know, if you've come down from somewhere, I don't know, the Lake District, because you want to go to Goldsmiths, and then you get a job in London, and you've never been in a class where 20 languages are spoken, and the kids from Nigeria and the kids are from Romania and all that. It's good to come armed with one cultural something or other, you know. And so I taught that course for 9 years, I think.
Oh, that's amazing, Alex. I think we need to.
I know.
Unfortunately, we have to finish. Yeah, but that's like there's so much to talk about, and I love how you include Calypso in so many people's lives. You know, which is your kind of formation, but then you use that as a backbone almost, isn't it, to get other people creating their own music and their own worlds and words, not worlds. Like it's not good to write.
Words.
Yeah, their own worlds. Yeah. I was just thinking about the rhyming issue you said about the word world. But I think this is a good first time talking with you and connecting chats. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and
thank you for asking me.
I'd love to hear more of your Calypso.
We'll talk again. Yeah, we'll talk some more.
And we'll talk soon. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
Alex, thank you so much. Cheers.
My pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.